How's it going, everyone? I'm Jakejames Lugo, and welcome to the channel, where you'll find some of the most fair and honest game reviews out there. Now, finally, we've gone through No More Heroes 1 and 2, and if you haven't checked out those reviews, I highly recommend that you watch those before watching this one. But finally, we get to dive into the next entry of the franchise. And unfortunately for us, we waited a long time for whatever was going to come next from Suda51. But it wasn't No More Heroes 3, which hopefully we're going to be getting very soon. What we got instead was very different. After years of waiting for a new entry to the No More Heroes franchise, Suda51 finally gave us something with our favorite assassin, Travis Touchdown. Only it wasn't something that we expected. Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes is a sequel to No More Heroes 2, which was released for the Nintendo Switch and eventually came out for the PlayStation 4. Now, even though this is a brand new game, it's not the next mainline entry of the series. You could call it a spin-off, but it's more like an interlude right before No More Heroes 3. And because you know I'm going to want to review No More Heroes 3 eventually, we have to talk about this one. So the story of Travis Strikes Again takes place about 7 years after the events of No More Heroes 2. This is a funny nod to how long it took Suda51 to give us a new game. A lot has happened since Travis became the #1 assassin in Santa Destroy for the second time, but he decided to go into seclusion in Texas and get away from the assassin underworld for a while. Unfortunately for him, he can't escape his past and is pursued by Badman. He's a former pro baseball player that turned assassin and is the father of Badgirl, one of the assassins that Travis had killed in the first No More Heroes game. Batman wants revenge for the death of his daughter, but is also trying to fulfill a deal with the Smith Syndicate. He receives a Death Ball, a gaming device that works on a console called the Death Drive that can revive his daughter, provided he's able to kill Travis Touchdown. The two of them meet and cross blades, but in the middle of their scuffle, both of them are sucked into the Death Drive Mark II console and must team up in order to overcome the challenges within the game world. The further they get into each Death Ball, the closer they get to reviving Badgirl and discovering the truth about the Death Drive Mark II. As a follow-up to the plot of No More Heroes 2, it's great to see what Travis has been up to all this time, but I have many thoughts about this, and not all of them are good. Now I'm going to be straight up with all of you out there. I'm a big No More Heroes fan like anybody else, but I really didn't like this story. I just felt that everything that happened was so superficial. It's like all the events that happen in Travis Strikes Again just feel like there's no real consequence or there's nothing really to gain from going through all this stuff. I feel like if you totally skip out on this story or you never hear it or never play through this game and you go straight into part 3 whenever we get that, it'll be totally fine. You could go from 2 to 3 because everything in here, even though we get some backstory and a couple minor details here and there as a bridge game, it just feels like it just didn't need to happen. One of the things that really doesn't do it for me in this game is the lack of voice acting. Granted, within the opening cutscene and some of the ending stuff and a few things here and there, we do get some voice acting from the voice actors of like Travis Touchdown, from Badman, and a few others. But the majority of the game, with all the cutscenes both inside the actual game worlds themselves and these visual novel cutscenes, which are kind of like the in-betweens between each stage, there's just no voice acting whatsoever. It's told through text. And I always felt like the real charm from No More Heroes came from the voice acting and just like the different humor and the funny, stupid moments that came from that. We get none of that here, even though some of the writing is kind of witty and it has that fourth wall breaking humor that we're so accustomed to. But without the voice acting, without hearing Travis's voice, it feels like the soul of all this is just completely lost. Some people might like the visual novel style that all the cutscenes are told through, which is kind of like almost like a MS-DOS type of looking thing. It's just as weird to me that we just didn't get that voice acting because it's there, like there's some there, but it's just not utilized for the rest of the game, and I think that was a huge mistake. Now that we've finally got all that out the way, let's finally talk about the gameplay because there's a lot more to unpack with this game in relation to that as opposed to anything else because I have a lot of feelings about how this game ended up playing out. This has to be the most difficult pill to swallow about Travis Strikes Again, especially if you're like me and liked the combat from No More Heroes 2. I will say that the idea of paying homage to various indie games is pretty neat, but in execution it's difficult to enjoy most of the game, as it gets very repetitive pretty quickly despite changing up the setting and the visuals so much. The death balls that you gather hold different styles of games that Travis and Badman enter, with a lot of references that some will pick up on. You can play as either Travis Touchdown or Badman, but you can use both in local co-op with another player. No matter how you play, however, you'll encounter the same challenges and conclusion by the end. Combat is very simple and repetitive. You just slash at hordes of enemies that come at you, with the occasional boss fight that shows up here and there. Instead of his signature wrestling moves from the previous games, Travis can use chip powers that grant a variety of different abilities. These range from firing projectiles, laying down traps, or even powering up Travis for a short time. You obtain chips as you find them in each area, which can be equipped in the sub-menu. You're getting a lot of action here, but it's definitely not the same type of combat from the previous games.
You like that?
There's a total of 6 Death Ball stages to complete, and you get an additional Death Ball stage in the DLC as well. Each has a big boss fight at the end, which are more annoying than they are challenging. As long as you have a good selection of chip powers equipped and lives left over, you could overcome them pretty easily. The worst part of the gameplay, however, is the stiff controls and the slight drag in your movements. Sometimes the controls can be quite unresponsive when you're moving around and fighting large groups of enemies, leading to getting hit and knocked back during some of those fights. It doesn't break the game outright, but it does happen enough to become noticeable and a real pain in the butt when you least expect it. Each of the Death Ball stages that you go through for the entirety of the game, they do try to be very unique with the different approaches and nods to different gameplay styles within the games industry, but they don't really go too far and they don't really get beyond just the aesthetics of it. Really, at the core of the game, you're really just hacking and slashing groups of enemies and fighting bosses. I will say that one of the standouts for me out of all the Death Ball stages was the one called Life is Destroy, when you're pretty much changing the different actual tiles of the town that you're exploring. You're actually switching them around and turning how they actually are oriented in order to get to a mansion where you have to visit and fight a bunch of more enemies. That to me was kind of interesting, but all the other Death Ball stages, including the one that's the joke Death Ball stage, which is just a big nod to vector graphics style games, they don't really do anything too crazy. There's nothing really that beyond as far as just the basic gameplay that you get at the very start of the game. I mean, they try to make themselves more out than what they actually are. The one other thing I will say that I actually do not like is the leveling within Travis Strikes Again, because as you defeat enemies, you do gain experience points that you can level Travis up and also Badman, but my big problem with it is that you share the experience between the two characters. You don't gain separate experience for the two of them where they could just level up individually. You have to share that total experience that you get. So if you level up Travis Touchdown, you can't level up Badman with that same number of experience points. You have to go kill more enemies to almost get double the experience points to level up both characters. This is the same thing with the different chip skills that you find throughout all the different stages, and to me that's very annoying because especially if you're playing solo, you should be able to share all that stuff between both characters. Unless you're playing co-op, you'll be able to actually have your own chip sets and your own experience points. That makes more sense to me. Why they decided to do it this way is beyond reasoning. I just think it worked out for the worse. So with all that being said, let's finally get into some of the extra content in the DLC, because for me, this is where it all fell down. For real. For fans of No More Heroes, there are some cool reveals that happen in the plot of the main game. However, the extra DLC adds more story and revelations that wrap up everything so we could finally move on to No More Heroes 3. Unfortunately, this is where I had a lot of issues that popped up. When you finish the main game and start the DLC, you gain the ability to play as Shinobu. She's Travis's pupil from the last game and is sporting a whole new look here. At the same time, you also gain access to a new stage to play through called Killer Marathon, where if you complete it, you unlock Bad Girl as a playable character. Both ladies play exactly the same as Travis and Badman, so there's little to no difference in using them. You do get some alternate dialogue and cutscenes, but it's nothing major. But my biggest problem that stands out is how cheap the new Death Ball stage is. Randomly, the game will throw some incredibly annoying stipulations at you that never appeared anywhere else in the main game. In one section of the stage, you have to travel through an area where everything you do uses up air, including your attacks and other actions. If your air runs out, you automatically lose a life and can get a game over if you run out of lives. It caused a ton of frustration for me when moving through that area, especially when I had to replay this spot around 4 times just to get through it. There's air pockets around the area to recover some air, but they're so spread out and crowded by enemies nearby that it makes it significantly out of your favor. This is hands down the absolute worst part of the game, DLC or otherwise. I feel like I only got past it out of sheer dumb luck. It's not fun to deal with and comes out of completely nowhere. Besides this, there's some extra visual novel scenes that give some details about Batman and Batgirl's origin. But unless you're already enjoying the previous cutscenes from the main game, you're not going to care about these too much. You don't get anything extra for completing them. If I could summarize the extra content here, I would say that it's all pretty disappointing. Outside of the one big tease that we get at the very end of the game that everybody knows about, which is just a huge nod to No More Heroes 3, we don't get any sort of variation on the ending or some of the post-game content after finishing the DLC. It's kind of disappointing for me because with how much of a big deal that they made about Batgirl and playing as Shinobu, there really isn't a whole lot that's changed when you play as those characters or when you finish all that content. So after everything that I've said, can I recommend that you guys check out Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes for the Nintendo Switch or the PlayStation 4? If I'm being totally honest with everybody, absolutely not. I feel like you could totally skip over this game and go straight into No More Heroes 3. Some of my biggest issues come from the gameplay, specifically from the DLC section, which has annoying aspects to it, but the biggest thing that really decided this for me was that the story beats just aren't all that interesting. They're nothing too crazy important that you need to have going into the next game of the franchise. I feel like you could pick up a lot of this stuff just by reading a wiki. If you still want to check out the game for yourself, there is a version of this game that's not only on the Nintendo Switch, but also the complete edition on the PlayStation 4, which is the one that I played for this review. It has both the core game and the DLC together. But if you were like me and you were hoping for a lot of big revelations going into No More Heroes 3 to come from this game, I really don't feel like you're going to get that. I feel like you're going to go into this and come out of it very disappointed. So personally for me, I say skip over this game and just wait for No More Heroes 3 for when it finally comes out.
Hey, quit fucking around. This isn't a game, you know. Get the hell out. Seriously, what the hell, man? Huh? Where is this? Open up your eyeballs, dude. We're in development. For what game? Like I'm gonna tell you that.
And there you go, everyone. Those are my thoughts on my full review of Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes. I'm glad I finally got to talk about this game and cover it here on the channel, but I was just wildly disappointed. I remember even being wildly disappointed when this game first came out way back when on the Nintendo Switch. We all thought this was going to be No More Heroes 3. But luckily for us, that wasn't the case, but still, we ended up getting a disappointing game, and it's just something that I wish that maybe they'd spent a little bit more time developing it, or like coming up with much more solid ideas, but at least we're going to get the third game at some point. But as always with any game that I review on this channel, that's just my thoughts about Travis Strikes Again. Let me know your own thoughts about this game down below in the comments section. Tell me, are you a fan of No More Heroes? Do you want to see something specific or cool happen in No More Heroes 3? What about this game worked or didn't work for you? Talk to me about all that stuff down below in the comments section. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. I really appreciate it a ton. I'll have more videos for you to enjoy here on the side that I know you'll love. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon too. Don't forget to visit my Patreon linked below for early access to new videos every week, and join the Discord server too. It's linked in the description box below. You'll definitely love being a part of it. Thanks again, peace out, and stay epic everybody.